Oi! Yes! What's happening, everybody? It's Tuesday night. It's 10 o'clock Central Time. You know what that means. It means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. If I seem a bit melancholy today, it's because I'm not going to see you guys on Just the Tip for a little while now, man. It's going to be like a month, maybe a little bit more, until we do this show again, because this UFC Vegas 45 card with 14 fights on it is the last one of the calendar year 2021. We got one chance left to make money on the UFC before the year is done. We got to do it on this card, everybody. How's everybody in the chat doing? How's your Tuesday night going so far? How was your week last week? Last week, the ass shaving of the week was one Bruno Silva over the man who had been previously knocked out by a hot shower. One, Jourdain right there. So we did get the job done on the ass shaving of the week. I had placed 5 bets. One of them was called off because the Parisian fight was off. Another one was a finish-only prop on the Munoz Cruz fight. I had Munoz. That one did not. It was voided because it didn't. It went to decision. And then my other 3 bets cashed. I had a 1.5 unit money line bet on Josh Emmett that cashed. I had a fight that the Silver Wright fight wouldn't start round 3 that cashed, and I had a Blanchfield Maverick fight goes to decision bet that cashed. So. Good, way to bounce out of some bad weeks prior to that. So we're on the upswing. We're trying to make some more money this week. We got 14 fights to break down. Let's see what you guys are talking about here in the chat. We got my guy Chris Kalanzis in the room saying, looking forward to a great show from Uncle Weezy. Thanks for hanging out, Chris. Much appreciated as always, brother. We got Daz Files in the room saying, great card last week and good card this week. And now just the tip. Let's smash it, Smooth Jimmy. Smooth Jimmy's actually really fired up. I had to kind of calm him down before the show today. Being the last card of the year, he's on a winning streak too. So, we're both fired up. We're chomping at the bit to get at it with you guys here today because we got 14 fights to break down. We got my guy JSJ23 saying, "Oi!" And he's saying, to anyone that had a bad night on Saturday, at least it wasn't $318,000 that you lost. Or at least I hope it wasn't, because that was a very improbable victory by Juliana Pena that not a lot of people saw coming. Big props to Juliana Pena on being the new women's bantamweight UFC champion. Long live the queen, the Venezuelan vixen. Big ups to her. And, what can you say to the people that lost money on Amanda Nunes? I did not see that coming. I don't know a lot of people that did, but hey, on to the next. And we got Mogwonk Zerg in the room saying, what's up, bro? What's up, Mogwonk? We got my guy DFS by the numbers saying ass shave. We will be getting to that later. We got Matthew Chalk saying, oi! What's up, dude? We got Metalingus in the room. Hope to fail less than this last card. The past 2 events really sucked. I had a good last event, but man, the previous 4 out of the last 5 events prior to that, this last week for me were super rough. Some bad beats, some bad bets. It's a tough game that we play here, but we got to put in the work to try to get the best spots that we possibly can. Thanks for hanging out, Metalingus, and we're going to try to turn it around for you this week, my man. Eric Cote saying, give me that healthy dose of confirmation bias, Unc. Let's see if I can help you out with that, Eric, because we got a whole lot of stats to go over. And Matthew Chalk saying, one more Uncle Weezy story for the year. Actually, I don't have one on tap today. If I think of something in the middle of the show, maybe I'll do an impromptu one. But I don't have anything on tap right now, Matthew. But you never know what your Uncle Weezy might bust out on the last of the year. So we got my guy Jeremiah Nicola saying, Kai Kara France had me a great night. Got the money line and the KO prop. Yeah, I picked Cody Garbrandt to win that fight. And I was actually considering betting Garbrandt after he looked good on the scales. I thought maybe if he did have a good cut down to 125, that the fact that he's bigger, the fact that he's might be the better boxer and had fought better competition would shine through, and he would have a great flyweight debut. That did not happen to be the case. And we move on, but I did not bet that. I didn't have strong feelings about that fight, but my biggest concern for Cody was the weight cut, and my second biggest concern is that his chin wouldn't be as strong at 135 as it was at 125, and his chin was actually kind of strong against Font. He absorbed quite a few shots over 5 rounds against Font and never stopped. So, I didn't see Kai Kara France knocking out Cody Garbrandt, but big ups to you for cashing that bet, and big ups to Kai Kara France for a big win over Cody Garbrandt, UFC 269. So let me get a sip of this, you guys. That's a damn good Paloma. We got my guy Tristan Sherhouse in the room saying, let's go. Let's go, Tristan. It's good to see you in here. We got Kani Karukio saying, awesome card last weekend. Let's continue cashing out. I agree. Absolutely got to finish off the year strong. We got the Cuban Assassin. Where was Menthol Keith Peterson last week? Well, with Dominic Cruz on the card, maybe they just kind of figured they'd give him a 1-week break because, maybe Keith had a little bit too much to drink over the holidays. Well, it didn't really feel like, like coming back to work. So I don't know. But yeah, he's not there last week, but he probably will be here this week while we're right back in Vegas where Keith does his best work. And we got Danny Lopez saying, let's go, Weezy. Let's go, Danny. Let's go, not balls deep, but just the tip into all 14 fights on the UFC Vegas 45 card. We're going to share my screen and see if my co-host, Smooth Jimmy Apollo, is ready to go and break down these fights with me. Let's see. Oh, there he is, my man. And I'm telling you, he's fired up for this card. Some really interesting stylistic matchups, some striker versus striker matchups, some striker versus grappler matchups, some fights that are like really sick, like 83% implied probabilities to finish inside the distance. Let's break them all down, you guys. Let's start with the curtain jerker, like we always do. Matt Sayles versus Jourdain Leavitt. We've got both of these guys very young in the game. 26 years old for Jourdain Leavitt, 27 for Matt Sayles. It's going to be Jourdain Leavitt who's the bigger dude here. 2 inches of height, 3 inches of reach, and Jourdain Leavitt is a southpaw fighting out of Syndicate MMA. We got Matt Sayles out of Alliance MMA, but I think he might be training somewhere else for this camp. If you guys in the chat know where he might be training, I thought I had heard something earlier about him training at a different camp. It's Matt Sayles who has 2 more pro fights and about 40 more minutes in the pro cage. And he's been doing this about 3.5 years longer than Jourdain Leavitt. And he's got 1 more UFC level fight and about 15 more minutes in the UFC cage, you guys. Average fight time for these guys in the UFC, about 8.5 minutes for Sayles, about 6.5 minutes for Jourdain Leavitt. And on the average fight time for the career, the numbers actually are almost identical there. So a slight experience advantage for Matt Sayles, a slight tail of the tape advantage for Jourdain Leavitt here as he's the bigger, longer dude here. And also we have to mention when we talk about the tail of the tape here that Matt Sayles has fought his entire UFC career down at featherweight. And he's not even a big featherweight, you guys. So even though Jourdain Leavitt isn't this gigantic lightweight, he is going to be the much bigger guy in here. And Sayles coming up a weight class and coming off a 2-year layoff, if I'm not mistaken. It might even be more than that. But it's at least a 2-year layoff for Matt Sayles here. Knee surgery, and I think he did blow up a little bit in weight. So, we've got a situation here where we haven't seen Matt in a minute. He's coming up a weight class, long time off. There's some missing information here. But when we look at the finish stats, Matt Sayles has finished 7 of his 8 wins inside the distance due to his serious knockout power in his right hand. And we see Jourdain Leavitt has finished 6 of his 8 pro wins. 5 of those 6 wins by submission, 1 of them by knockout. And in their 4 combined losses, only 1 is finished inside the distance. That was Matt Sayles being submitted via twister by one Bryce Mitchell, one of the best rappers anybody's ever heard. Got to get that mixtape, you guys. Treat yourself. Life is short. Enjoy good music. All right, so now we've got Jordan Leavitt here on the striking numbers. He spends about 80% of his time in grappling positions here, so not much to look at striking. Jordan Leavitt is really not entirely comfortable striking at the UFC level, but he uses his striking to kind of set up his takedown entries, and he's constantly trying to get the fight to the ground. No knockdowns against. Very poor 46% striking defense, but he is landing a little bit more than he absorbs, while Sayles lands about 2.3 significant strikes per minute more than he absorbs. Very impressive. 42% striking accuracy. He's landed a knockdown in his 4 UFC fights due to his serious power in his right hand. That's 0.43 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And he's shown a really nice 62% striking defense. It's going to be Sayles who has a big advantage here on the feet. On the grappling exchanges, Matt Sayles is 0 for 5 on his takedown attempts, and he's being out-controlled 11% to 22%. And his opponents have been successful on 3 of 16 takedown attempts against. He's showing 81.25% takedown defense here, being taken down 1.3 times per 15 minutes. And he's had 2.17 submission attempts per 15 minutes attempted against him, being controlled 22% of his UFC career. Jordan Leavitt is constantly in control time positions here. He's gotten 4 of his 10 takedowns. He was a state finalist, I believe, in Nevada in high school. So he does have a high school wrestling background. I don't know if he has a college wrestling background. He's averaging 3.06 takedowns for 15 minutes and 3/4 of a sub attempt per 15 minutes. And he's getting out controlled by his opponents 31% to 51%. He's got 0% takedown defense, which is, I think, a little bit more. I don't know if he's trying to stop these takedowns as much as, he's very comfortable on the ground. And if he's on the bottom, he'll just try to sweep or attempt submissions from his back. But Puelli's did take him down 4 times and controlled him for a very long time. So we did see him kind of gas out. But, Leavitt does want the fights on the ground, and I think he's going to sell out to get it there. The question is, if he can't, submit Matt Sayles in the first round, what's that second round? What's that third round going to look like? Because we've seen Jordan Leavitt gas out a little bit, and we know that he's going to sell out with a wrestling-heavy game plan here. So this is a very hard fight to call. I wouldn't want to put money on Matt Sayles right now, because the problem is we haven't seen him for a long time. He's coming off a serious knee surgery. Word is that he blew up a whole shit ton of weight, and that he's taking his first fight at 155 instead of 145 because he can't even cut down to 145 right now. And he wasn't even a big featherweight to begin with. So there's a lot of things on the narrative side I don't like about Sayles, but I do think if he wins this fight, he's going to knock out Jordan Leavitt. He's got a ton of power, and he has shown pretty good takedown defense, even on the regional scene. He was taken down twice by Bryce Mitchell, and he was taken down 1 time by Kyle Nelson. And other than that, he hasn't been taken down in the Moraes and the Hajj fights. So Sayles, if he keeps this fight standing, it's going to be him all day. But if Jordan Leavitt is able to get this fight to the ground and keep it there, he should be able to win minutes there and potentially even submit Sayles, because Sayles doesn't have great Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I've seen him, get out of some bad positions on the ground, but he's also been put in bad positions just as a result of being swept. He can get on top and then easily be swept and then put in bad positions and have submission attempts attempted against him. So I'm going to go with Jordan Leavitt here with very little confidence, you guys. But it's not so much that I think that Sayles can't knock out Leavitt, and I'm not entirely confident that Leavitt can push a wrestling-heavy game plan successfully for more than a round and a half. However, I don't know what Matt Sayles we're going to get here. And if Leavitt does get to the ground, I think he could be live for a submission. So I'm not betting this fight though, you guys. The pick is going to be Jourdain Leavitt by unanimous decision. Moving on, we're going to go on to the Don'Tale Mayes versus Josh Parisian fight. We got the big boys here, so get ready for some power numbers. Get ready for a little fun breakdown here. All right, see my guy Dan Goldstein in the chat here. Let's see what you guys are saying here real quick. We got my guy James Say Word in the house saying Weezy in the house. What's up, James? Good to see you in here. That was one of the best cards I've ever seen, said Jay. Dan Goldstein said the holiday season final tip, and I'm here for it. Happy pre-Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, and Chinese New Year, you fine young degenerates. Dan, thank you for the greetings and salutations, and I echo those sentiments 100%. Dan Goldstein saying Matt Sayles harnessing his inner Paulo Costa for this weight cut. Yeah, the word is that he's a little bit fat. So I don't know what to think about that. But he does have serious power, and if he connects, he could knock him out. And then Davey Allen saying, Jay agreed. It was a great card. Absolutely. All right, you guys, Don'Tale Mayes against Josh Parisian here. It's going to be Mayes, who's 3 years younger. He's going to be 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. It's going to be Josh Parisian, who's got the experience advantage, 6 more pro fights, and another year in the game. It's just that his fights are taking place at only 6.56 minutes per fight time, while it's 11.13 for Mayes. So Mayes has a little more cage time as a pro. It's Mayes who has 6 UFC level fights, including the Contender Series, and it's Parisian who has 4. 3-3 record for Mayes, 3-1 for Parisian, and we've got about a 30-minute advantage in UFC experience for Mayes. So the experience numbers are actually very close, but Mayes has a huge tail of the tape advantage here. In terms of finishing numbers, we got an 85% finish rate for Josh Parisian. So that would be 10 out of 14 fights finishing inside the distance. And that would be, I believe, 8 by knock. Well, I don't know. My math is screwed up here, but either way, 85% finish rate. That would be 12. So it's going to be 2 by submission, 10 by knockout for Josh Parisian, and then it's going to be 4 by knockout and 1 by submission for Don'Tale Mayes. And in these guys' losses, we've got them finishing 5 out of 8 times. They've both been finished by knockout and by submission. When we look at these guys' UFC striking numbers in the 6 and 4 game striking sample size that we have, we've got Mayes being outlanded here by about 0.33 significant strikes a minute, and we have Parisian outlanding his opponents by about 0.4 significant strikes a minute. It's Parisian who's more accurate, Parisian who has shown more power, and Parisian who has way more knockdowns per 15 minutes. Both of these guys are showing very bad striking defense, though, thus far in the UFC. And it's been Mayes who's been knocked down once in 6 fights, and Josh Parisian has never been knocked down. You know, what I noticed about Parisian is that he doesn't do very well when he's pressured, but Don'Tale Mayes is not much of a pressure fighter. Parisian throws a lot of kicks. He's surprisingly athletic with his speed and his striking and his diversity of striking attack when he's on the feet. Mayes is a little bit slower, but his punches are straight to the target. He hits hard, but he's not spectacular there. But he's definitely the bigger and more natural heavyweight here, as Parisian's a big dude, but Don'Tale Mayes isn't carrying any extra fat on his body, while Parisian is. We see both of these guys haven't went to the grappling much. They each only have 1 takedown in the UFC, and their takedown percentages are both 20% and below for both of them. Neither one of them is getting a lot of control time, but Parisian has 16% control time, but he's being controlled 26% of the time. Don'Tale Mayes is being out-controlled as well by almost a 2-to-1 ratio. But Don'Tale Mayes' opponents have shot 4 times as many takedowns as Mayes has, while Parisian has actually shot more takedowns, just 1 more takedown than his opponents, but he's being out-controlled. So neither one of these guys has been stellar in the grappling exchanges. But I think Parisian, if he got on top, would be able to do some damage. But he has not had really good takedown accuracy, nor has Mays. And in terms of the takedown defense, Mays has been taken down 9 times in 6 fights. He's being taken down 2.05 times per 15 minutes. While for Parisian, he's only been taken down twice, and he's been taken down 0.85 times for 15 minutes and been controlled 26% of the time. And then we look at the strength of schedule here, and it's Mays who's fought the way better strength of schedule. However, you know, he's fought Gane and then Nascimento, while Parisian has fought guys like Chad Johnson, Parker Porter, Roque Martinez, and Greg Rebello. And then Mays got the 2 wins over Procell and Sipe. So the thing about Parisian and Mays is they both have 3 wins in the UFC, but neither one of these guys has beaten anybody in the UFC who has a 1 UFC win. So no matter what, this is going to be the best win on either of these guys' record, whoever wins this fight. So right now, the betting lines for this one has Don'Tale Mayes. Let me just refresh the page here so we've got the most accurate betting lines at the moment. And Don'Tale Mayes is minus 200, and Josh Parisian weighing in here around plus 170, plus 165 on the aggregate. I like Parisian on the money line, you guys. I think Don'Tale Mayes probably wins this fight about half the time. It feels like a very close fight. I think Parisian's striking is better than people think it is. I think Mayes hits a little bit harder than people think he does. But both of these guys have been finished in losses, but neither one of them has shown that crazy finishing power against somebody on their own level. Neither one of these guys came even close to finishing Roque Martinez. And they beat guys, you know, on the Contender Series that weren't quite on their level. So Parisian having that experience advantage, Mayes having that strength of schedule and that size advantage. I think the grappling is going to be close. You know, I think the striking is going to be a little bit close, but I favor Parisian a little bit there. In this close of a fight, I just don't like laying minus 200 on a heavyweight who hasn't beaten anybody yet that has a UFC win. So I think the value here is on Josh Parisian. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just pick Josh Parisian here by decision. And in terms of the fight goes to decision, we're getting plus money here. And neither one of these guys has been great finishers of top-level opponents. Neither one of these guys are entirely top-level, but they've been very tough thus far in the UFC. So I think that's interesting. If that keeps drifting more to the plus side on the fight doesn't go, or the fight goes to decision, I might be tempted on that. But yeah, I'm going to pick Josh Parisian here, you guys, to win this one by decision. Let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Raquel Pennington versus Macy Chiasson. And it's going to be Macy, who's younger, much bigger here, and having a 5-inch reach advantage. My guy DFS by the numbers alerted me to the fact that this fight will be taking place at 145 pounds now, not 135. So here's the thing. I don't know why the fight got moved from 135 to 145. Let's see if UFC Stats, as a matter of fact, has updated this on their website, because sometimes it takes them longer. So if we view this matchup, it does say women's featherweight bout, but this was recently moved from 135 to 145, and I don't know why. So that's giving me some pause to betting on this fight. But it's going to be Chiasson, who's much bigger, and it's obviously going to be Pennington, who has a big experience advantage here. And it's going to be Pennington, who has fought, beaten, and lost to the way better competition. So massive experience advantage for Pennington, massive strength of schedule advantage for Pennington. And then there's a huge size advantage here for Macy Chiasson. So let's get into these striking numbers, because this is what's going to differentiate this fight, the striking and the grappling numbers. It's Pennington who's landing more than she absorbs, 3.59 to 3.21, almost 50% striking accuracy, and a 62.5% striking defense. Macy is landing 4.16 per minute and only absorbing 2.17. So very impressive in terms of not absorbing a lot of strikes. She's shown some power, landing 2 knockdowns in her 6 UFC fights. And she's out-ratioing her opponents and outlanding them by 2 significant strikes a minute, while for Pennington, it's only about 0.38. But when we look here at the grappling numbers, we do see that Macy Chiasson's fights are taking place in control time positions about 68% of the time. So less than a third of her fights take place at striking range. While for Pennington, it's a little over 50% of her fights that are taking place at striking range. We do see that Macy Chiasson has gotten 4 takedowns in 6 fights. She's averaging just less than a takedown per 15 minutes and out-controlling her opponents 44.62% to 23.38%. Pennington has gotten 15 takedowns in 14 fights on 52 attempts, 29% takedown accuracy, just over 1 takedown per 15 minutes, and 25% control time for, 24% control time against. Raquel lives in the clinch, and Macy does too. And they're both very comfortable there. It's going to be Macy who's taller, but Pennington throws wicked knees to the body and to the head and elbows. And she's very strong in there, very mean in there. I love the way she really goes after it in the clinch. And the same thing can be said for Chiasson. She's just huge. She's so strong. She can overpower you there. And this fight being at 145 actually kind of worries me now because, as big and strong as Chiasson is at 135, I fear her not having cut that weight because up at 145, I think she's even more dangerous, especially against a career 135er like Pennington. If you remember watching Macy in the Tough House, she was absolutely destroying girls up there at 145. And it wasn't until she ran into, or I believe she did beat Panny, but Macy is just so much bigger naturally here. I don't know why this fight is taking place at 145. Either way, I still do think this fight goes to decision, but I think that it's going to be very close in the clinch. I think it's going to be very close in the striking. But when we look specifically, at the level of competition, this is what has me thinking Pennington is going to win this fight. Her only losses are to, we got Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm twice, and of course, when I start in the middle, I don't know whether I'm going to get the right side of it, and it doesn't look like I am. Oh, there it is. There's Rocky. So the losses were to Jessica Andrade, Holly Holm twice, Amanda Nunes, and Germaine Durandamy. We add up those records, 47 win and 20 loss record. It's the elite of the division that are beating her, and these are not bad wins. Pani Kianzad, Marion Renault, Irene Aldana, Misha Tate, Elizabeth Phillips, Betch Correa, Jessica Andrade, Ashley Evans-Smith, and Roxanne Modafferi. While when we look at Macy, the wins are over Pani Kianzad, Gina Mazzani 2-5, Sarah Moore Ass 3-6, Shanna Young 0-2, and Marion Renault 5-7. I watched the Renault fight against Chiasson and against Rocky, and I think that Marion's very strong in the clinch as well. She gets takedowns as well, and she's a decent boxer in her own right. And what I saw was the difference was on the feet is that Macy Chiasson is definitely incredibly hittable on the feet, you guys. Marion was actually piecing her up. She's got to shore up that striking defense because that's going to be a problem against somebody that brings the pressure and the pace and that clinch game that Rocky Pennington does bring. I was going to bet Raquel Pennington by decision here because I think one of the best ways to nullify a reach advantage against an opponent is to pressure and to get in the clinch and to box, and get into boxing range and throw hands. And I think that Rocky's going to be way better than that at that. I think that she is going to be landing the more accurate strikes, and that Macy's defense isn't nearly as good as Rocky's is. So I like Rocky in this fight, but I don't know why this fight is taking place at 145. The original bet was going to be Rocky by decision, but now that I know it's moved up to 145, I'm just going to pick Rocky. I'm going to pick her to win by decision, but I most likely won't bet it because there's some missing information here. I need to find out why this is happening. And if that information isn't available, then, it's just going to keep me off of this fight. But yeah. All right. So let's move on to the next one, you guys. We got a lot of work to do here. We got a ton of fights to break down. This is fight number 4 of the night. Charles Jourdain against Andre Ewell. Jourdain, 7 years younger, 1 inch taller, but it's going to be Andre Ewell with the 6-inch reach advantage. Jourdain fights out of switch stance. Ewell is a southpaw fighting out of Apex MMA, while Jourdain, Academy Pro Star. It's going to be, and by the way, Andre Ewell moving up to 145 pounds for the first time in his career. He's had a lot of weight cut problems. He's a huge bantamweight. So I think now he got sick of cutting that weight, moving up to featherweight. This might be a better weight class for him, and he has the reach advantage over a lot of people in this weight class. And since one of his biggest problems in the past has been conditioning, it'll be interesting to see how Andre Ewell looks up here at 145 and whether he can go a full 15 minutes, not having to make that nasty weight cut. All right, so we've got Jourdain, 7 years younger, but it's going to be Ewell with the 6-inch reach advantage. It's going to be Ewell with the experience advantage, a little more time in the cage and about 1 more year as a pro. And he's got 2 more UFC level fights, 30 more minutes in the UFC cage. Both these guys average fight time just below 14 minutes. Jourdain, 100% finish rate in his wins. He's finished both of his UFC wins, and he's finished all 11 of his pro wins. However, he's been to a draw once, and he's only been finished in 1 out of his 4 losses. Ewell has a 65% finish rate as a pro, but a 0% finish rate in the UFC. And he's been finished in 5 out of his 8 pro losses and 3 out of his 4 UFC losses. So one way to play this is Jourdain inside the distance, because Ewell losing 3 out of his 4 UFC losses inside the distance, Jourdain finishing 2 of his UFC wins inside the distance, and also 9 wins outside the UFC, all inside the distance. When we look at these striking numbers in a pretty good sample size here, we see that Jourdain is outlanding his opponents, landing with 46% striking accuracy. Excellent power numbers for Jourdain. He throws everything with heat, whether it's kicks, elbows, punches. The guy throws hard, and he's got a ton of power for the featherweight weight class. 1.4% of the time he lands a significant strike, it results in a knockdown, and he's averaging 1.1 knockdowns for 15 minutes, second only to Josh Emmett in the featherweight division. While Andre Ewell not showing power, outlanding his opponents by just a little bit here, and only he's only had 1 knockdown in 8 UFC fights, so he hasn't shown that power yet in the UFC. Less accurate than Jourdain, less powerful, throws a little less volume, and has a worse striking ratio. And both of these guys have been knocked down before. Jourdain has been knocked down twice in 6 fights. Ewell has been knocked down twice in 8 fights. It's Jourdain with the better striking defense here at almost 60%, while Ewell's is about 54%. I predict that this fight is going to take place at range pretty much the entire time. Ewell only 2 takedowns in 8 fights. Jourdain was 0. Both of these guys have a bunch of takedown attempts shot against them. However, neither one of these guys is much of an offensive wrestler. They prefer to strike. So I do see this fight taking place on the feet. I see the natural featherweight kind of winning those exchanges and landing the better strikes. And he throws with so much power, I think he'll be able to close that reach advantage that Andre Ewell has. And both these guys throw a lot of volume, but at least Ewell does throw more output than his opponents, while Jourdain is getting outputted by his opponents. When we look at the strength of schedule it's Ewell who has the edge here at 1.54 ratio over a 1.06, and he's also fighting the more experienced competition. The wins are better for Ewell because he's beating guys with an average 4-3 record, while Jourdain is beating much less experienced competition with an average record of 1.5-1. And then in the losses, it's Jourdain who's losing to 5-5 opponents, while Ewell is losing to opponents with winning records. So even though Ewell's fighting at bantamweight and Jourdain is fighting at featherweight, it is Ewell who has shown the better strength of schedule thus far, and bantamweight might even be a tougher division, pound for pound, than the featherweight division. And we can look at the last 5 here. We see guys like Duho, Choi, Andre, Philly, Culibao, Rojo, and Arosa for Jourdain, while it's Arce, Gutierrez, Rivera, Martinez, and Vera. It looks like Ewell only fights guys with Latino names in Arce, Gutierrez, Rivera, Martinez, and Vera. We got a Rivera and a Vera. We got a couple names that end in Z's here. So Andre Ewell, for now, will be fighting a French-Canadian. The French language, also a Latin language like Spanish. So I don't know. He won't be stepping too far outside of his comfort zone here, but he will not be fighting somebody with a Latino last name for once. Anyway, and the dog is barking. I don't know if he likes Andre Ewell, but it might just be that somebody's at the door. But right now, because I see this fight taking place on the feet, and I see, even though a little bit better strength of schedule for Ewell, I do like the advantages in the striking ratios here for Jourdain. I love that power advantage that he has. He's shown a great chin, great toughness, but Ewell will be a tough test moving up to 145 here. Not quite sure how he will look. I'm going to be picking Charles Jourdain by second round knockout here, you guys. But I'm not going to be betting that because I don't exactly know if the move up in weight is going to be a good thing for Ewell here. And if we're going to see a new and improved Andre Ewell, because he is more experienced, because he has fought the better level of competition here. And he's got a 6-inch reach advantage. So there are reasons to like Ewell here. However, I am going to go with Jourdain. Love that power. Love the striking. Love the diversity of striking. And I love the fact that he's incredibly tough and has got a fantastic gas tank. So I'm going to be going with Charles Jourdain by second round knockout, you guys. And now we're going to be moving in to a very interesting fight here in Melissa Gatto versus Sijara Eubanks. And let's see here. We got my guy B stopping in the room saying, getting near midnight Eastern Standard Time. We'll have to rewatch. Keep on keeping on. I appreciate you stopping in, B. Always much appreciated. Dan Goldstein saying Jourdain is a known bed shitter of the highest order. Yeah, I mean, Erosa really put it on him, though, in that last fight. I haven't seen Ewell put on a pace like that, especially in a third round ever in his career. So that was interesting. And Jay saying Ewell, Macy are the only dogs I might play. Maybe Hill too. And Hannah Goldstein saying, I'll bet Hannah Goldie before I'll bet either of these boxcar hobos. Put up your Addy in case someone wants to send you a Christmas card, says B. I appreciate that, man. Send me smash, like, spread the word. We got my guy Nick Alexander in here taking notes. We got Raw Torque saying, nothing to see here, folks. Move along. Noah Allen saying, Weezy, are you a Wayne fan or just a stage name? It's not a stage name. It's actually a play off of my last name. People have been calling me Weezy since Little Wayne was still shitting his diaper, sitting on a fucking gold toilet seat. So yeah, you're looking at one of the original Weezys here. The absolute original Weezy, though, of course, was Sherman Hemsley's wife on the seminal television show The Jeffersons. So I got to give credit to the original Weezy. I am just following in her footsteps. So yes, I am not a huge Lil Wayne fan, but I am more of a classic hip hop guy. Tribe Called Quest, The Far Side, Boogie Down Productions, Eric B. and Rakim, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, some of the classics. My guy Common from the south side of Chicago. We got Matthew Chalk saying 1 unit bet incoming. Noah saying when the boy Clint said Ewell has the power edge, I did a spit take. Yeah, and he does not have the power edge in this fight. It's Charles Jourdain is putting up really good power numbers, knocking people down, throws with super heat. Yeah, it's Jourdain who has the power edge, according to my metrics and what I've seen on tape. But like we say, cutting down to 135 for Ewell, we don't exactly know how Andre's going to look here. And there are reasons to like him, the reach, the experience, the strength of schedule. So, but we got Davey Boy saying, I'm going for the dog. I hear you calling. Stay away, says B. Joe says, spreadsheet, Jimmy, what it be? Davey's saying it's 3:45 p.m. in Australia. The Weezites are here. All right. Nick saying, oh, gee, Weezy. You're going to need, you may get to the midnight if you're going to need to do a shoey. Yeah, no doubt. All right, you guys, let's move on here. Wait, let me get this one. We got my guy, Nick Odd, saying, is your friend's wife still mad at you for Jacques? Love that story. Haven't heard from her. Don't care to at this point. But if that kid asks me for more ideas, I might just give him some more. I appreciate you, Nick. Oh, my goodness. That's real hip hop, says Silky B. There we go. We love the real hip hop. Yeah, Angela Hill live bet. Yeah, all right. So Nandalal in the room and Jarno in the room. Appreciate. I'm pretending to work because I'm writing down notes and tips from Weezy. Early morning in Finland. Good stuff. Appreciate you, Jarno. And Nandalal saying Jourdain clearly hadn't done those up-down drills to perfect level change or energy usage. Yeah, and I mean, he's not shooting much anyway. But appreciate each and every one of you that's hanging out in the chat here. Let's get it. Let's keep this under 2 hours today. Melissa Gatto, 11 years younger than Sijara Eubanks. We've got a 1-inch height advantage for Gatto and a 2-inch reach advantage. She will be bigger. She will be younger. She will be longer here. We've got more professional fights by 4 here for Sijara Eubanks, twice as much time in the cage, and about a year and a half more as a pro, and 8 more fights at the UFC level and 113 more minutes in the UFC cage. So a lot of experience here for Sijara Eubanks and a little bit of a size and youth advantage here for Melissa Gatto. We've got a 43% finish rate here for Sijara Eubanks, all by knockout, while Melissa Gatto has got a 71% finish rate. She's finished 5 of her 7 wins, 4 by submission, 1 by knockout. Neither one of these ladies has ever been finished. Sijara is landing 4.56 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 3.59. She's got a little bit of power here. She's landed one knockdown in 564 significant strikes. And she's got 57% striking defense here, never been knocked down in 9 fights, while Gatto is landing 7, absorbing 4.3. That's in a 1-fight sample size, though, you guys. Sijara gets a ton of takedowns, 16 takedowns in 9 fights, 33% control time for, 14% control time against. Sijara Eubanks is a position over submission grappler. Melissa Gatto is the opposite. She is a submission over position grappler. Nobody's ever submitted Sijara Eubanks in 13 professional fights, and she's a BJJ black belt, while Melissa Gatto is a BJJ purple belt. So, all right. Gatto's shown good takedown defense in the UFC. She stopped all 3 from Leonardo, and Leonardo did get in really deep on a double leg, but Gatto got out of there. And if this fight plays out on the feet, I think it's going to be very close. Gatto, in her almost 3 years off, she really improved her striking, and she looked fantastic against Victoria Leonardo. However, this is a huge step up in competition. Eubanks is going to have a huge experience advantage here. She's going to have a huge strength of schedule advantage here. I think she's got the wrestling advantage here, and I think she's got the control time and the ability to win minutes on the ground advantage here. I do find this being close on the feet, but Sijara Eubanks has boxed against much, much better opponents than Melissa Gatto. When we look at the last 5 here, we see Victoria Leonardo. The win by submission over Carol Hossa was before the 3 years off. Melissa Gatto is very young. She's at a point in her career where she's going to be making improvements every single fight. Well, I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of improvements at this point in Sijara's career, where she's already 36 years old. One thing to mention as well, it's very important, is that Sijara Eubanks is 3-0 at 125, and she is 2-4 at 135. So 125 is where she does her best work. However, it is a very difficult weight cut for Sijara. She's a big 125er. I would suggest that you maybe wait until, if you're thinking of betting Sijara here, I'd suggest waiting to see her on the scales, because if she does not look good on the scales, I do still think that her best path to victory here is pushing a wrestling heavy game plan and a volume heavy game plan in order to win minutes on the feet and win minutes on the ground. In order to do that, you have to have had a good weight cut and have to have conditioning. So it's going to be important to see Sijara on the scales here. But, you know, I think that the experience advantage might be a little bit too much for Melissa Gatto to overcome. I also don't like the fact that she's a little bit sloppy on the ground, and that Sijara has swum with much tougher Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in her past than Melissa Gatto. I think this might be too much too soon for Melissa. I'm going to pick Sijara Eubanks to win this fight by decision. But I do think that it's going to be very interesting on the ground. Melissa Gatto constantly is attacking for submissions. So, you know, Sijara is going to have to mind her P's and Q's down there, but she is a BJJ black belt. I think she's more than up to the task here. I'm going to be picking Sijara Eubanks to win this fight by decision, you guys. And we can see much more experienced competition and a better ratio overall, and better wins and a better ratio overall on the wins. So, and, you know, the girls that are beating her have 7.25 total fights on the aggregate and winning records, losing to girls like Pani Kianzad, Ketlin Vieira, and then I believe Aspen Ladd. Here, let's take a look real quick here at the wins and losses for Sijara, so we can get an idea of the strength of schedule that she's been facing. Because when you're losing to girls like Pani, Ketlin, Betch Correa, Aspen Ladd with a 19-14 record overall. And another thing that we look at here is look at the control time numbers in these fights. She lost to Ketlin because she only got 39 seconds of control time. But even in a loss to Pani, 400 seconds of control time, 221, 612, 254, 145, 148, 358, and 290. She's been out-controlled by Aspen Ladd. She lost that fight. And she's been out-controlled by Ketlin Vieira, and she lost that fight. But when she out-controls her opponents, she's 5-2. So this is a spot where she's going to have to use that wrestling, use that really accurate takedown game of hers, because we do want to remind you that she has 47% accuracy on 34 takedown attempts. So Sijara is good at getting the fight to the ground when she wants it there. So yeah, you guys, the pick is going to be Sijara Eubanks by decision. And this is a fight that will not be going to decision, you guys. Let's just enjoy another sip of beverage here before we go over Justin Tafa versus Harry Hunsucker. I'm going to put this lime wheel here actually in the drink so I can kind of sip more at a time. Okay, now, Justin Tafa, 5 years younger, very, very young for the heavyweight division than Harry Hunsucker. Hunsucker 2 inches taller, 1 inch of reach. Justin's a southpaw and Harry is orthodox. It's Harry with the experience advantage, but it's Tafa with the cage time advantage, because the average fight time for Harry Hunsucker is 1.73 minutes. I had a fun time watching a fight. You know what I like to do when I'm watching tape is, if I can find two fighters on the card who fought each other, you know, that's two birds with one stone. You get to watch tape on two fighters in the same fight. Harry Hunsucker, I think it was his debut, or I think it was Dante O'Maise's debut, beat Harry Hunsucker. You want to see a guy with the epitome of a 2-minute gas tank It's Harry Hunsucker. His average fight time is 1.73 minutes. So Hunsucker's had 4 more fights. He's been doing this for about a year and a half longer than Justin Tafa. He's older. He's bigger. But it's Tafa who's fought a bigger percentage of his career at the UFC level and has fought more cage time as a pro and in the UFC. Excuse me. Excuse me. Let me get some. Oh, shit. I don't have water. Anyway, at least I have alcohol. All right. Yeah, you can. DFS by the numbers says you can watch Hunsucker's entire career in 10 minutes, and that's so funny. It's true. So Tafa probably got a little bit of an experience advantage in my mind, just because he's fought UFC competition, 30 more minutes in the UFC cage, and about 30 more minutes in the pro cage. Both of these guys have 100% finish rates in their wins. Hunsucker has a 100% finish rate against, and Justin Tafa has been finishing 1 of 3 losses. Tafa's, landing 5.15 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 6.12. Harry Hunsucker's being knocked down 2.7% of the significant strikes that he absorbs for 3.42 knockdowns allowed per 15 minutes, while Tafa has been knocked down once in 209 significant strikes. And it was by Yorgan De Castro, not one of the better UFC heavyweights. So, neither one of these guys are very good, but one of them is a gigantic favorite. And I'm not going to even get into any more stats on this fight. I'm just going to show you the line. Justin Tafa, minus 330. Harry Hunsucker, plus 270. The fight doesn't go to decision. Is right now sitting at minus 550 on FanDuel, and it's minus 430 on the aggregate. Harry Hunsucker in 11 professional fights has never once seen a second round. So one of the best parlay pieces on the card, you guys, is minus 400. Fight doesn't go to decision. This fight most likely ends in the first round. It will most likely be Justin Tafa that knocks out Harry Hunsucker. But first round knockout for Tafa here. Let's see if we can find that line. Yeah. Tafa, first round knockout, plus 165, plus 175. And we got Hunsucker by first round submission is plus 2,000, and Hunsucker by first round knockout is plus 1,000. I think those are both interesting ways to play it. But this fight should end in round 1. The fight ends in round 1 is minus 110. Can you imagine that? There's more than a 50% implied probability of this fight finishing in round 1. It's one of the surest fight doesn't go to decision bets of the entire year because Harry Hunsucker's in the fight. Whoever you like here, pick them to win in the first round by knockout. My pick is Justin Tafa to win this in the first round by knockout. Am I laying minus 330 on a Justin Tafa money line against anybody in the UFC? No, absolutely not. Tafa's still got a lot to learn, you guys. He's still very, very young for a heavyweight. And as far as we know, he has absolutely no ground game. Nobody's even trying to take him down. So, that could potentially be something that Hunsucker tries to do. But, with a guy that already has no gas tank, offensive wrestling, unless he gets the takedown, would probably not be advisable because he probably wouldn't even make it back to the stool after the first round if he shot for 2 or 3 takedowns. So both of these guys hit very hard. Hunsucker's probably a little bit faster, but Tafa's going to be the much better, more cleaner technical boxer. Because of that, I'm picking Justin Tafa by first round knockout. But there's interesting bets on both sides. Bet either whoever you like, bet him to win in the first round because that's probably when this fight is going to end, you guys. Tafa, that's the pick. The next fight, Hani Barcelos versus Victor Henry. Let me see if they have updated Victor Henry's measurables here on the UFC website because, all right, well, they got him down as a switch stance fighter, which he is, but I do not have a reach for you guys on Victor Henry. But both of these guys are 34 years old. They're both the same height. I don't know who has the reach advantage. Henry fights out of both stances, and it's going to be Barcelos, who's orthodox. Barcelos training out of Pedro Rizzo's camp in Brazil, and while Victor Henry is UWF USA. And I don't think that's the Universal Wrestling Federation, but I don't know what it is. It's not that, though. Anyway, Victor Henry, 26 pro fights. He's actually got the experience advantage here over Hani Barcelos. Keep in mind that Victor Henry has taken this fight on 9 days' notice. 21-5 for Victor Henry, 16-2 for Barcelos. About 100 more minutes in the pro cage for Henry, and about a year and a half more as a pro for Henry. It's going to be Barcelos with 6 more UFC fights and an average fight time of 12.58 minutes and a 5-1 UFC record. His only loss was total bullshit to Timur Valiev. Barcelos a 63% finish rate overall as a pro, while Victor Henry has a 67% finish rate as a pro. Both these guys can sub you one way or another, but Barcelos is definitely more of a knockout artist. In the 7 losses combined for these guys, only 1 has happened inside the distance. So Victor Henry has never been finished, and Hani Barcelos has been finished once by submission, but it was not in the UFC. We don't have any statistics here for Victor Henry because he has no UFC fights. But when we look at Hani Barcelos' stats, they're eye-popping. They're really, really good. 53% striking accuracy. He outlands his opponents by over 1 significant strike a minute. He's landed 4 knockdowns in 6 fights, averaging almost 0.8 knockdowns per 15 minutes, showing a spectacular, stellar 66% striking defense. He's over 50% on his takedown attempts. He's averaging 1.79 takedown attempts for 15 minutes and 0.6 submission attempts for 15 minutes. And he out-controls his opponents at a 6-to-1 ratio, 24% for, 4% against. And that's despite the fact that he's just tried 3 more takedown attempts in 6 fights than his opponents. So he's very, very efficient in the grappling exchanges, whether he's going for takedowns or whether his opponents are shooting on him, in which case Hani Barcelos in the UFC has demonstrated over 92% takedown defense, you guys. He's got great boxing. He's got great offensive and defensive grappling. His striking defense is damn near the best in the entire division at 66%. And he's fought much tougher competition, although not very experienced UFC competition, but with a 1.67 win-loss ratio. His wins are over guys with winning records, but not many total fights in the UFC. But, you see names like Timur Valiev, Khalid Taha, Said Nurmagomedov, Huachin, and Gutierrez on his, while for Victor Henry, it's Nikita Chistakayev, Trent Girdham, Masanori Kanehara, former UFC guy, Denis Lavrentiev, who's very good, and Albert Morales, another UFC guy, former UFC guy. So, Hani Barcelos is much better than this guy. I'd be a little bit worried if, Henry was younger and had, was really kind of at a point where he could make a run, but I don't really see that. I don't see one single area where Victor Henry is better than Hani Barcelos, except for cardio and volume output. But Barcelos is going to be the far better striker offensively and defensively. He's going to be the far better grappler offensively and defensively. It's really hard to see any way that Victor Henry wins this fight, except in the case that the only way I could see it is if the exact same thing happens in the Timur Valiev fight, where Barcelos gets it to the ground, beats the shit out of him, but the ref just doesn't stop it, and then he death gasses, almost like a Leonardo Santos situation here. I'm very confident in Hani Barcelos this week. He's going to cruise over Victor Henry, who's taken this fight on 9 days' notice against a guy in Barcelos that is just an extremely well-rounded, well-tested pro. I am picking Hani Barcelos, and I'm going to call him to win by decision because Victor Henry has never been finished. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Barcelos just came out here and starched him in the first round, to be honest with you guys. But the pick is Hani Barcelos by decision, you guys. All right. Let's see. Worst fighter in the UFC is Leonardo Santos in the second round, says Davey Boy. Leo Santos brings third round Andrew Sanchez energy to that second round for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. Why are we wary of betting on old men? Well, both of these guys are, 34, but yeah, old men there are several reasons. Number one, especially when they're coming off some losses and they know that there's never a chance that they're going to challenge for a championship ever again. You get the impression that these guys realize that once fighting is over, they might not be able to make money. So a lot of these guys just take, show money checks, just stay in the limelight, get as many sponsors as they can, but their heart really isn't in fighting. So when you see an older fighter, you have to ask yourself, what are they fighting for? Are they fighting to be the best? Are they fighting to put together a 6-fight winning streak at this point in their career and get a title shot? Are they close enough to even smell a title shot? If not, these younger, hungry guys who are trying to feed their families as well, who have their whole careers ahead of them and really do have that, eye on the prize, it can make a big difference, in my opinion. So, that's why I don't like betting on them. And tell that to the Guida backers. Yeah, that's for sure, man. Guida got the job done, but Santos is older than him. 41, Santos, 39, Guida. So we bet the younger guy there, we would have won that fight. Hendry KO, question Barcelos' ability to simply have a work rate to keep up. Okay. How many knockouts does Hendry have in his career? 21 wins and 29% by knockout. So he's got 6 knockouts in 21 wins. Not much of a knockout artist. Hani Barcelos has never been knocked out. I don't see Henry knocking him out on 9 days' notice, but that would be a spectacular feat if he did. They got odds out, yes, says Mitas. Yes, they do. And then let's move on, you guys. Let's move on. Oh, Grayson saying, what's up, Weezy? Any nice violent spots this week? Yeah, Tafa, Hunsucker, the main event. And I think that a sneaky one is actually Hill Lemos, but we'll get to that. And actually this one, Meerschaert Stoltzfus, has a really good chance of finishing inside the distance. Let me get this off the screen, you guys, so you can see the stats. We've got Gerald Meerschaert, 3 years older. He's 1 inch taller and has a 2-inch reach advantage. He is a southpaw fighting out of Rufus Sport. For Stoltzfus, I think he's fighting out of Franker's fight team, but I think he's been at the UFC PI here for a minute now. Meerschaert about 3 times as many pro fights as Stoltzfus, about 160 more minutes in the cage, and over 7 more years as a pro. He's much more experienced, and he has 11 more fights at the UFC level and about 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. Gerald Meerschaert with a 94% finish rate, 31 of his 33 wins coming inside the distance, while for Stoltzfus, he's got a 53% finish rate, 7 of his 13 wins coming inside the distance. That would be 5 by submission, 2 by knockout. And Gerald Meerschaert has, in his 31 wins, 15, 22 and a half, 23 wins by submission in Gerald Meerschaert's career, and Dustin Stoltzfus's only loss has come by submission. So, but Gerald Meerschaert here, he's in his 14 losses, he's had a 78% loss rate. So 11 of Gerald Meerschaert's 14 losses have come inside the distance, and 1 of 3 for Stoltzfus. 12 of 17 of these guys' losses have come inside the distance. So I think there's a very high probability of this fight finishing inside the distance, you guys. When we look at the striking numbers, Meerschaert absorbs a little bit more than he lands. He's got 44% striking accuracy. He's got 2 knockdowns and 337 significant strikes landed. averaging 0.3 knockdowns for 15 minutes. Stoltzfus also getting outlanded, not showing great striking defenses. Stoltzfus here at 47%, while Meerschaert not much better, up at about 52%. Meerschaert's been knocked down 3 times in 14 fights. Stoltzfus's wrestling hasn't been great. He's only gotten 1 takedown, but that one dislocated Body Bags Pfeiffer's elbow. But Stoltzfus really getting out-controlled here, 39.57% to 7%, while Meerschaert, even though he's attempting way more takedowns than his opponents, he's getting out-controlled, 24.97% to 23%. Meerschaert, not very good takedown defense, below 50% at 43.75%. And Stoltzfus only at 50% takedown defense. So I do see a high percentage of this fight taking place on the ground, at least probably 50% in my opinion, because both of these guys don't really seem to be able to stop takedowns. And Meerschaert is pretty active with the wrestling and is getting his takedowns at over a 40% rate. I think he wants this fight on the ground. I think he thinks he's a better grappler than Stoltzfus. When we look at the strength of schedule numbers, it's going to be Meerschaert who has fought the better competition here, and he has beaten the better competition, while Stoltzfus has lost to guys like Kyle Daukaus and Rodolfo Vieira with a 1.0 ratio. It's Meerschaert who's losing to guys with almost 11 total fights, a 1.6 win-loss ratio. Better strength of schedule for Meerschaert, better measurables for Meerschaert, way more experience for Meerschaert, a better finishing rate for Meerschaert. The striking is going to be close. I do like Gerald Meerschaert quite a bit here, you guys. I'm going to call him to win by 3rd round submission. Let's move on. We've got a couple of well-tested veterans, a couple of old men here. Darren Elkins, the damage against Cub Swanson. All right. We've got Cub Swanson, 1 year older than Darren Elkins. It's going to be Elkins, who's 2 inches taller and who has a 1-inch reach advantage. The experience is negligible. Both these guys have almost 40 fights. Both these guys have around 350 to 400 minutes of cage time. Both these guys have been pros for around 15 years. Elkins, 4 more fights at the UFC level and a little more UFC cage time. The finish rates, about 54% for Elkins, about 59% for Swanson. Elkins been finished in 4 out of his 9 losses. Cub Swanson has been finished in 9 of his 12 losses. So there could be a good chance of a finish in this fight. We see that Swanson is the better minute winner on the feet. He's more accurate. He's more power. He lands over 1 more significant strike than his opponents. He's better defensively, much better defensively, 8%. He's been knocked down less, and he's been hit less. So, you know, well, actually, Elkins has been hit less. That's false, what I just told you, but it's Swanson who's going to be winning the minutes on the feet here. And then we see that the takedowns, we see that Elkins has offered up 153 takedowns, you guys, in 24 fights. He's been very active with the wrestling. He's getting them at a 33% clip and out-controlling his opponents 36% to 15%, while Cub Swanson has been very efficient when he goes for the takedowns, but he's only gotten 12 takedowns in 20 fights, but he is getting them at over a 50% clip, but he only has managed to get, let's see, it will be 20 minutes of control time in his 20 fights. While, you know, for Elkins, it's about 100 minutes in 24 fights. So he averages about 4 minutes of control time per fight, while it's for Swanson, it's about 1 minute of control time per fight. And it's Elkins who hasn't had great takedown defense here at only 56%. He is getting controlled a decent amount, about 42 minutes on those 21 takedowns, while Cub Swanson about 25, about 47 minutes on 26 takedowns. So, yeah, Cub Swanson is probably going to be really good with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the ground, but it'll probably be Elkins who can win minutes there. I think this is very close, you guys. Now, when we look at the strength of schedule, it's Cub Swanson who's fought the much better competition here. And he's beaten the better competition, and he's lost to the better competition. So Cub is going to have the strength of schedule edge and the striking edge and a little bit of an experience edge here, while Darren Elkins will have the wrestling edge, a little bit of a size edge, and he's just a little bit younger, a little bit less tread on the tires. But my God, both these guys have got a ton of tread on the tires. Which one of these guys wants it more at this point? It's hard to say. I am picking Darren Elkins here to win this fight. I think that he will go to the wrestling. I think he's going to make this fight very dirty. He'll probably get cracked once or twice, but I think he'll be able to probably take this one down and win some minutes on the ground like he has done before. And Cub Swanson, not looking great in his last couple of performances here, but you know, I don't think I can bet it, because when you look at the names like Moicano and Burgos and Chikadze and compare it to the guys like Minner and Garagori and Landwehr, you know, when he's losing to Hall, look, Lamas is a stud. But yeah, it's Swanson, you know, should be winning the minutes on the feet, but Darren Elkins fights take place on the feet, you know, on the aggregate over a 24 fight sample size, less than 50% of the time. And I believe that this fight is going to be no exception. I think Darren Elkins is going to win this one by a greasy split decision. But, you know, both of these guys are old with a ton of tread on the tires. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of these guys just cash it in and get finished early. And that would probably be Swanson, because he's been finished in 9 of 12 losses and in 6 of his 8 UFC losses. So, yeah, very interesting fight, but I'm going to pick Darren Elkins, but I will not be betting him, you guys. All right. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more fights. We are already an hour and 12 in. So let's keep it moving here. We got Mateusz Gamrot squaring off against Diego Ferreira. Very interesting fight. Gamrot's younger, 1 inch taller, but it's going to be Ferreira with a 4-inch reach advantage. Gamrot's a southpaw, Ferreira orthodox. Ferreira fighting out of Fortis, Mateusz out of ATT. We've got both of these guys have the same amount of fights, very, very similar experience numbers, but it's Diego Ferreira that's been fighting a higher percentage of his career at the UFC level. However, Gamrot was fighting as a champion in KSW. 59% finish rate for Ferreira, 58% finish rate for Gamrot. In these guys' 5 combined losses, 2 of them have finished inside the distance. When we look at the striking numbers, we've got a really good sample size here with Ferreira. 4.7 landed, 3.38 absorbed, 38% striking accuracy, but showing good power here, landing 2 knockdowns and 523 significant strikes and 0.27 knockdowns for 15 minutes. He's been knocked down twice in 12 fights, 0.27 times for 15 minutes. Pretty good striking defense up here at 56%. Gamrot in his 3-fight sample size is showing much more impressive metrics. 4.1 landed, 2.09 absorbed, 48% striking accuracy, and landing 1 knockdown in his 3 fights. That was against Holtzman, but he has been knocked down twice in 3 fights. And I find that very concerning, because Diego Ferreira is very good on the feet here. And if we look at the grappling numbers, we're going to see Gamrot has attempted 23 takedowns in only 3 fights, you guys. So he will be going to the wrestling here. He will be trying to control large swaths of this fight on the ground in order to win minutes there. Ferreira has gotten 6 takedowns in 12 fights. Not really good getting the fight to the ground. Less than 25% accuracy. Less than 1 takedown per 15 minutes. Only 15% control time. So not really much of a control time monster here, but he is a BJJ black belt, and he is very good on the ground and is constantly attacking with submissions. We got Ferreira with a 66% takedown defense. Gamrot showing 100% takedown defense thus far. And Ferreira has been controlled about 22.73% of the time, and he's being taken down 2.43 times per 15 minutes. When we look at the strength of schedule here, we're going to see that it's Ferreira who's fighting the much, much, much better brand of competition. It looks like Gamrot's, fighting really experienced guys, but Kutateladze only has one fight. Holtzman, I think, might have 11, but Jeremy Stephens is, like the fourth most tenured guy in the UFC. So we see 14 fights, but really only a 1.05 ratio here, while Ferreira, it's much better. So the wins are much better as well at 1.92 ratio to 1.05. And the guys that are beating Ferreira are absolute monsters with a 3.79 ratio of wins to losses. And I want to take you through that, you guys. I want to show you who Diego Ferreira has been fighting and beating. And believe me, Gamrot's no scrub either. He's fought really good competition outside of the UFC as well. But when we see the losses to Gregor Gillespie, 7-1, 2 losses to a 15-4 Beneil Dariush, who will be fighting Islam Makhachev next, and then a 20-5, now 20-6 actually, Dustin Poirier, but a 57-14 record. And then the guys that he's beating, Colton Smith, Randy Nijam, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Jared Gordon, Kyle Nelson, Rustam Khabilov, Mirabek Taisumov, who he won a striking battle with, Anthony Pettis, who he subbed, and then that's it. But still winning records here. And look at all of the wrestlers that this dude is fighting. Beneil Dariush twice, Jared Gordon, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, Ramsey Nijam, Colton Smith. So it's a small wonder that takedown defense doesn't look great on paper. But he's fought some of the best and most active grapplers in this division here, especially with guys like Dariush, Khabilov, Gordon, Aubin-Mercier, and even Nijam and Smith are wrestlers. So, you guys, Diego Ferreira, this is not the first time that he's going to be seeing a wrestler. And it's not the first time that he's going to be seeing a grappling-heavy game plan. And even guys like Kutateladze, even though he would get taken down, he was getting right back up, and he was threatening with submissions. I think Diego Ferreira, you guys, is very, very live here. The line on this fight right now is Ferreira plus 165 and Gamrot minus 190. I think the value on this one right now is on Carlos Diego Ferreira. I think he can win the exchanges standing on this fight, and I think he can keep a low enough percentage of this fight in control time positions, or at least threaten with submissions when they are on the ground or when Gamrot's trying to take him down, because I think that this is a bad matchup for Gamrot. And this is a guy who has just fought a murderer's row of competition here. And even though he's fought that murderer's row, this guy is 8-4 in the UFC. Very impressive record, only losing to Gillespie, Dariush, and Dustin Poirier. So here we go. The pick is going to be Diego Ferreira by decision, you guys. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be a very close fight, and it's going to be a huge test for Gamrot here. But let me go back to the stats. God damn it. I got a cough. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm working hard, you guys. We're an hour and 20 minutes in. But yeah, I'm going to be picking Ferreira here by decision. The only thing that I really don't like, you guys, is the fact that Ferreira is older here, 36 years old. But he's not an over-the-hill lightweight yet. And that 4-inch reach advantage, I think, will play big on the feet here. And I just think that Gamrot's actually going to be the better striker. Or I'm sorry, that Ferreira is going to be the better striker, and that Gamrot's been a little bit too hittable. So the pick is going to be Diego Ferreira by decision, you guys. Let's move on to Raphael Assuncao versus Ricky Simon, one of the great mullets in all of mixed martial arts here. Ricky Simon, the best example of any mullet in any mixed martial arts fight has to be Ricky Simon versus Rob Font, the most aggressive, spectacular Wisconsin waterfall mullet I've ever seen in my life. 10 years younger Ricky Simon is here, 1 inch taller and a 3-inch reach advantage. These guys are at completely different places in their career. Ricky Simon, 14 less fights, about 130 less minutes in the cage, and 10 less years as a pro. So Raphael Assuncao, much more experience, 7 more fights at the UFC level, about 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. And we've got Assuncao with a 52% finish rate overall. He's only finished 3 of his 11 UFC wins, while Simon, 45% finish rate overall, and he's finished 2 of his UFC wins. Simon has been finishing 2 of 3 losses, while 2 of 8 losses for Assuncao he's been finished in. So that's 4 of 11 losses. There's probably a high probability that this fight goes to decision here, but Assuncao was finished inside the distance by Cody Garbrandt in his last fight, so you never know. When we look at the striking stats, impressive economical striking stats here for Assuncao, landing 1 more per minute than he absorbs, throwing more output than his opponents, 41.5% striking accuracy, 2 knockdowns in 16 fights, so not a lot of power there, but a really impressive 68.42% striking defense. One thing Assuncao is spectacular at is slowing down a fight and making it incredibly boring, just making himself hard to hit, making it very low volume, and just being a little more accurate and hitting a little bit harder than his opponent. That worked really well some years back. He would work his way to some really close decision wins, but this is a new UFC. This is a new bantamweight division, a bantamweight division full of absolute killers. And when you're 39 and you're on a 3-fight losing streak, I don't care how good the guys are that are beating you. Ricky Simon has been in the cage with some of these guys. He's got wins over some spectacular mixed martial artists in his own right, and he's still only 29 years old and has his whole career ahead of him. While Raphael Assuncao, I don't know what he's fighting at, or what he's fighting for at 39 years of age here, besides a show check, because this is going to be a tough fight. Simon absorbs what he lands. He's a little more accurate, a little more powerful on the aggregate than Assuncao, and almost as good defensively, to be honest. 64.6% striking defense is very good. So, yeah, Simon pretty good on the feet as well. It's Simon who attempts over 10 takedown attempts per fight, while for Assuncao it's just under 3. So Simon, the much more active grappler, the much more accurate takedown artist. He's averaging 6.93 takedowns per 15 minutes, while Assuncao averages 1.34. And he's out-controlling his opponents 31.47% to 3.89% is Ricky Simon. 73% takedown defense for Simon, 81% takedown defense for Raphael Assuncao, and he's only been controlled for 9 minutes on those 6 takedowns. So Ricky Simon is going to go to the wrestling here, and maybe Assuncao's takedown defense holds up, but we do know that Ricky's going to pressure for those takedowns over and over and over again. We'll just have to see how Raphael holds up against that kind of pressure. But the thing is that he's really good at making fights close, and Ricky doesn't have the kind of power and striking that Garbrandt, Sandhagen, and Moraes, the last 3 opponents to beat Assuncao, did. But I still see him, kind of winning this fight everywhere. I just don't know what to expect out of Raphael Assuncao at 39 years old here. And there's no fucking way that I can pick him over a 29-year-old Ricky Simon, who's beating some damn good competition in his own right here, you guys. I mean, if we look at the strength of schedule stats here, they're actually better on the aggregate for Simon. The wins are actually better on the aggregate for Simon, and the losses are actually better on the aggregate for Simon. So he's fought the better level of competition. He's younger by 10 years. He's got a reach advantage. He's got a height advantage. He's got a wrestling advantage, and the striking stats are close. I'm picking Ricky Simon, you guys, to win this fight by decision. We've got 3 more fights to go over here. Amanda Lemos against Angela Hill. Everyone's calling Lemos a prospect. You're not a prospect when you're a 34-year-old strawweight. You got to go now. Amanda Lemos has to go now. She needs this fight. She needs to win this fight against Angela Hill, but it's a huge step up in competition for her. Hill's got way more experience, but it's going to be Lemos, who's an inch taller and has an inch of reach here. But it's going to be Angela Hill with 220 more minutes in the pro cage, despite the fact that she's been a pro just as long as Amanda Lemos. So Lemos has been very inactive as a pro, fighting less than twice a year, while for Angie, she's fighting 3 times a year. 13 more UFC level fights for Angela Hill. 210 more minutes in the UFC cage for Angela Hill. When we look at finish rates here, it's Amanda Lemos who is the finisher. 90% finish rate in 10 wins, 7 by knockout, 2 by sub, while Angela Hill has finished 38% of her pro wins by knockout. That would be 5 out of 13. Amanda's been finished in her only loss, while Angela Hill has been finished in only 2 out of 10 losses here. Big time power numbers from Amanda Lemos. You don't see power in this division like ever, but Amanda Lemos is the top of the heap here when it comes to power in this division. Landing a knockdown on 2% of the significant strikes that she lands. She has 4 knockdowns in only 5 fights, while Angie has 3 knockdowns in 18 fights. So we do know that Amanda Lemos is going to be faster on the feet. She's more accurate and straighter to the target, and she's way more powerful than Angela Hill. But she throws 100% force into every strike that she throws, so she really doesn't have the kind of gas tank to keep up that kind of power for a full 3 rounds. We did see her throwing some good shots in the 3rd round of the Mizuki fight, but she slowed down significantly after the 1st round in that one. And you could argue that Mizuki was very close to winning the 2nd and the 3rd round, and I scored the 2nd round for Mizuki easily. Angela Hill, way better with the striking defense, 63% in comparison to 46% for Lemos. So that's very troubling here, is that Lemos is actually getting hit more times per minute than Hill is. But yeah, better ratios for Lemos, better accuracy for Lemos, better power for Lemos, but much better striking defense for Angela Hill. And what's concerning here is somebody that's knocked out 3 of her 4 UFC opponents, or finished 3 of her 4 UFC opponents inside the distance. Angela Hill has never been knocked out, and she's incredibly difficult to take down. So if Lemos doesn't knock down Hill in the 1st round or knock her out, I think this fight is going to get very greasy and very close. This is the takedown defense I was speaking of. 84 takedown attempts against Hill, and she's stopped over 77% of them. She's only been controlled 16% of her UFC career, despite the fact that she's facing, 4.5 takedown attempts per 15 minutes or per fight. Lemos is 100% on her takedowns. She's getting almost 2 per 15 minutes, and she's controlling her opponents 21% of the time, while her opponents control her 27% of the time. That was Mizuki Inoue controlling her on the cage for large swaths of time in that fight, at least 5 minutes. That was really weird to see, because Lemos couldn't get Mizuki off of her. So I could see Angela Hill having some success, not only striking in the later rounds here, but also in the clinch against Amanda. But, I don't know how much of the fight is going to take place there, but Angela Hill is going to be ready for those clinch exchanges, and I think she'll do very well there. It's going to be Lemos who's fought the better win-loss ratio competition, but obviously Angela Hill has fought the better competition on the aggregate, the way more experienced competition, and has probably better wins against better competition here, but it's Lemos who has the better ratio. Hill's losing to better opponents too. So Hill's got the strength of schedule. Hill's got the experience. It's going to be Lemos with the striking. It's going to be Lemos with the size advantage here and the finish stats. And it's going to be Lemos with the grappling advantage, although I don't see this fight taking place in the grappling exchanges that much. I do like Hill in the clinch, and I do love Hill's conditioning here and 3-round experience and strength of schedule advantage. I'm not laying minus 400 on Amanda Lemos, you guys. I do think that she wins this fight. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think, though. I think after the first round, this fight's going to get very, very greasy. I think Amanda's going to slow down quite a bit. And one of the things that I will be sprinkling that I talked about on the Die Hard MMA podcast with my guy Clint yesterday was Angela Hill round 3. If we do get Lemos gassing here, is plus 3,200. And if you don't believe me that Amanda Lemos' conditioning does not look good outside of the first round, go back and watch her debut against Leslie Smith and go back and watch the Mizuki fight. Both times she did not look good outside of the first round, was huffing and puffing and slowed down quite a bit. That doesn't happen to Angela Hill, and she's never been knocked out despite the fact that she's fought some very, very, very tough competition. I'm going to be picking Amanda Lemos to win this fight by decision, but I will not be betting her. Let's move on to the co-main event, you guys. We got Stephen Thompson versus Belal Muhammad. Bilal's 3 years younger. It's going to be Thompson, who's 1 inch taller and who has a 3-inch reach advantage. The experience numbers are almost identical, but Bilal's been a little bit busier, and Stephen Thompson has 3 more fights in the UFC and about 60 more minutes of cage time. Both these guys average fight time approaching 15 minutes in the UFC, and is approaching, or they're both around 13 minutes for their career. Belal Muhammad is not a finisher. 26% finish rate in his career, one of the worst that I've seen in any men's division. While Stephen Thompson has only a 50% finish rate, and he's mostly finishing by knockout. Same thing for Muhammad. In terms of how these guys get finished, in 8 combined losses, only 2 of them have been finished inside the distance here. Stephen Thompson's been knocked out once, and Belal Muhammad's been knocked out once. So I suppose both of these guys have a plan, as they both tend to knock out their opponents more than they submit them. Could be an avenue for knockout for either one of these guys, but it's not that likely. This is the second worst fight doesn't go to decision line on the whole card. So this is way more likely to see the scorecards according to the bookies than not. All right. Stephen Thompson with spectacular striking metrics. He has a better striking ratio than Belal Muhammad. He's a little more accurate and far more powerful than Belal. Belal has shown a little bit better striking defense here. Both of these guys have been knocked down, but it's Muhammad who's been a little bit chinnier than Stephen Thompson, and against not quite as good competition. Belal Muhammad's the much more active grappler here, though, as he's attempted 78 takedowns in 14 fights and gotten 22 of them. He's out-controlling his opponents at over a 4-to-1 ratio here, while Stephen Thompson gets out-controlled at about a 1.5-to-1 ratio. Stephen Thompson showing 73% takedown defense, Belal 91% takedown defense, and Stephen Thompson has done a good job keeping the fights on the feet. He's on the feet more than 80% of his UFC career and has only been controlled 12% of the time, despite the fact that his opponents are attempting a little over 2 takedown attempts per fight. The thing that bothers me about Thompson's UFC career is that nobody really tries to take this guy down. He does have good takedown defense, and because of that karate stance that he uses, it's very difficult to close the distance on him, because he's really precise and really quick to the target when you do move in on him, whether that's striking or whether that's shooting for a takedown. It's very risky to do that. But Belal is a very smart fighter who fights to his win condition very, very often. So I don't see him voluntarily striking at range with Stephen Thompson for long periods of time. I think he's going to have to sell out to get this fight into control time positions. But the low takedown percentage at 28.21% bothers me. And not only that, in 14 fights, the fact that about 74% of his fights have taken place at striking range bothers me as well, because I think that this fight needs to take place in control time positions for probably more than half the fight for Belal to have a chance here. Because the longer that this fight takes place striking at range, it's going to be difficult for Belal to win minutes against Stephen Thompson on the feet. When we look at the level of competition, it's actually quite similar. Better win-loss ratio competition here for Belal Muhammad, more experienced competition for Stephen Thompson. When we look at the wins are better for Thompson, and the losses a little bit better probably for Belal Muhammad, especially because the ratio is 2.5 to 1.43, but they're both fighting very experienced competition. I'd give Stephen Thompson a slight strength of schedule advantage here. I'd give him a big striking advantage here. He's the bigger guy, but Belal Muhammad is 5 years younger. The experience is negligible. The grappling will go to Muhammad, but I don't like the fact that his fights don't take place in the grappling positions on the aggregate enough. I'd like to see a higher takedown percentage here. I'd like to see a higher control time percent on the aggregate for Belal Muhammad. And as a result of all three of those things, I'm going to pick Stephen Thompson to win this fight by decision, you guys. And then we've got the main event, the last fight of the night to break down the last UFC fight of 2021, you guys. And the last fight that your Uncle Weezy is going to be breaking down on just the tip in 2021. Ladies and germs, Derek Lewis versus Chris Daukaus, the Black Beast, 36 years old. Chris Daukaus, 4 years younger. They're both 6'3", and it'll be Derek Lewis with a 3-inch reach advantage here. The tail of the tape, I would say, is even, because even though Derek Lewis has a 3-inch reach advantage, I like that 4-year age younger for Daukaus here. It's going to be Lewis, who's much more experienced. He's fought over 220 more minutes of cage time. He has 19 more professional fights and almost 4 more years in the game than Chris Daukaus. And he's got 18 more fights at the UFC level than Chris Daukaus and 200 more minutes in the UFC cage. So Derek Lewis, a reach advantage and a very big experience advantage here over Chris Daukaus. Both of these guys are spectacular finishers. 84% for Lewis, 92% for Daukaus. Derek Lewis has finished 12 of his 16 UFC wins. Chris Daukaus has finished all 4 of his UFC wins. These guys have a combined 80% finish rate in their UFC wins, and that is in a 20-fight sample size. In their UFC losses, Chris Daukaus has none. Derek Lewis has been finishing all 6 of his UFC losses, 100% finish rate against, and he's been finished in 6 of 8 pro losses. So his only 2 losses by decision both came before he made it to the UFC. When we look at the striking numbers for these guys, we do see that Derek Lewis lands 0.02 more significant strikes than he absorbs per minute. He throws a little more volume than his opponents, but it's extremely low volume. 50% striking accuracy, 1.3 knock. He lands a knockdown on 1.3% of the significant strikes that he lands, and he's averaging 0.5 knockdowns per 15 minutes. But he's showing a piss poor 41.58% striking defense, and he's been knocked down twice in 531 significant strikes absorbed. So only 2 knockdowns against in 22 fights for Derek Lewis. So pretty damn good. But his fights are very low volume. A lot of them wind up being staring contests. A lot of people are afraid to engage with him because of the amount of power that will be coming back at them. Chris Daukaus is putting up video game numbers in 4 UFC appearances here, landing over 9 significant strikes per minute, absorbing only 3.4. He's 53% accurate. He's landing a knockdown. He's had 6 knockdowns in only 4 fights, Chris Daukaus, and he's never been knocked down, and is showing over a 64% striking defense, and he's throwing almost twice as much volume as his opponent. So Chris Daukaus will be throwing more volume. He's been more accurate. He's been more powerful. He's averaging 6.66 knockdowns per 15 minutes, you guys. So while Derek Lewis is the UFC leader all time in knockouts with 12 knockouts, I said this on Stat Diggers on Sunday, and Brady said I might be a little bit crazy, but I think it might be Chris Daukaus that has more power because of the speed, because of the accuracy, because of the volume. I think he's actually going to be more powerful in the long run, because it's the combination of putting everything together instead of just sitting back and trying to land one big punch, that on the aggregate is showing that Chris Daukaus is landing way more knockdowns per 15 minutes. As a matter of fact, he lands over 6 knockdowns more per 15 minutes than Derek Lewis does. Now, he's fought in the UFC cage for 200 less minutes, so it's obviously in a much smaller sample size. But you guys get the idea that I'm going after here, that Chris Daukaus has been incredibly efficient in the striking exchanges. Grappling, Derek Lewis's fights have taken place in control time positions over 42% of the time, or almost 42% of the time. So he spends about 58% of his time striking. But he's really not the one initiating these exchanges. He's only gotten 7 takedowns in 22 fights and is averaging less than a half takedown per 15 minutes. But he has controlled his opponents about 28 minutes on those 27 takedown attempts and on those 7 takedowns. So some of that is surely cage control time, but Derek Lewis, when he does get on top of you, is terrifying with his ground and pound. And potentially, if he got a takedown on Chris Daukaus, he could finish him on the ground. Chris Daukaus, we haven't seen on the ground really at all here yet in the UFC, as he hasn't even attempted a takedown yet. And he's only had 1 takedown attempted against him, and he stuffed that. Derek Lewis, on the other hand, has only showed 55% takedown defense in the UFC. He's been taken down 35 times in 22 fights. He's allowing 2.44 takedowns per 15 minutes and 28% control time. So even though I don't expect either of these guys to go to the grappling, it's important to note in a 5-round fight, especially that, heavyweights are probably not going to want to waste their gas tank wrestling. It's a very risky move. I think the only one with anything to gain by it would be Derek Lewis, because he has been so effective on the top, because his ground and pound is so vicious. If I were to suggest that one of these guys tries a takedown, it would be Derek Lewis. But I do think that this fight is going to take place on the feet. I think the far superior striking defense of Chris Daukaus, the far superior volume, just the better boxer. He's really not the puncher's chance guy. He's really the guy that beats the shit out of you until you go down, while Derek Lewis waits to land that one big shot. I don't like to bet on the guy that needs the one big shot and doesn't really have many other avenues here. I'm picking Chris Daukaus to win this fight. I think he'll get it done probably in the second round by knockout. But yeah, it's going to be Chris Daukaus by knockout, second round. I love, as a parlay piece, fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, as we've seen in their 6 combined UFC losses. All 6 of them have finished inside the distance. Derek Lewis has been finished 100% of the time in the UFC, and Chris Daukaus, in his 3 losses outside of the UFC, has been finished 100% of the time. You guys, fight doesn't go to decision. One of the best parlay pieces on the entire card. I have fight doesn't go to decision for the main event, parlayed with Hani Barcelos' money line for 1.5 units. So that is one of my bets for this week. I don't usually do parlays, but those were 2 bets that I liked quite a bit. So you guys, we've broken down all 14 fights. It's the last Just the Tip of the year. we've got one more business to handle in calendar year 2021, and that is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week for UFC Vegas 45, the last ass shaving of the year. Who's it going to be, you guys? I mean, there are a lot of choices on this card. You know, if you like Lewis or Daukaus to win, they're going to shave ass. Amanda Lemos with 2% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed in the UFC thus far is a great opportunity for an ass shaving. I like Meerschaert with a 94% finish rate in his 33 wins. 31 of them have come inside the distance. 21 wins by submission. Gerald Meerschaert's a great option. Hani Barcelos over Victor Henry, who's taking this fight on 9 days' notice and making his UFC debut, is a fantastic option. Justin Tafa is almost a minus 400 favorite over the hairy Hunsucker, who's never been out of the first round. Great option. I mean, and then there's, you know, maybe you like Mays, maybe you like Parisian, but I'll tell you who I'm going with, you guys. I'm going with somebody that I think is going to have a dominant performance. I'm going with somebody that I don't necessarily think is going to finish the fight incredibly violently right away, but I think they've got an excellent chance to finish violently, and I just don't see it. I don't see an option for the other guy winning. So let's do it. Your last Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week for the calendar year 2021 UFC Vegas 45. Ladies and gentlemen, Hani Barcelos, who was robbed in the fucking Valiev fight of a stoppage, who was robbed of what should have at worst been a draw, but should have surely been a split decision victory or even a second round finish. Hani Barcelos is better everywhere. He's better standing. He's better on the ground. His wrestling is absolutely fantastic. And Victor Henry's get-up game is terrible. I think Barcelos can win this fight any way he wants it. He's going to make it look easy, you guys. Something that it is not easy for me to do is talk for an hour and 45 minutes straight with you guys, but it is a labor of love that I do here on my channel several times a week. I do it on Pub Sports Radio several times a week. I do it on my guy Big Brady's channel a couple of times a week. I'm putting in the work this week, you guys, for you guys. I'm going to do about 13 hours worth of content online just this week to close out the year strong. I'd like to thank everybody that's watched my videos, that subscribed to my channel this year. It's been my first year providing mixed martial arts content for you guys, and I have absolutely loved every single minute of it, despite the fact that it's very hard work. You guys have gotten me almost to 1,000 subscribers in less than a year. It's a tremendous feat. It shows me that you guys really like what I'm doing and you like what I'm bringing to the table. And I appreciate each and every one of you that watches my videos. I'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So if you watch my content and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I'm going to ask you right now at the end of the year that you do that. Help get me to 1,000 subscribers before the UFC comes back in the middle of January. I would love that. I am going to be adding a bunch of new content next year in terms of upgrading the content that I already bring you. I'm working on some new visuals. I'm working on some new analytics. And once the UFC fights end for the year, I'm going balls out and working full time on bringing all that stuff to you. I'd like to bring you a website at some point in 2022 or a Patreon product where I'm giving you analytics and breakdowns of fights and statistics and a bunch of different things that a lot of other people out there aren't giving people. I want to be able to create them in my database and give them to you for a very affordable price. So I'm looking forward to a big year next year, way better content. Monetized content on YouTube would be something that would be awesome for me. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me in 2021, for liking my videos, for watching my videos, for tuning into my channel when you want UFC analysis based on the statistics. You guys are the best. I appreciate each and every one of you. God bless each and every one of you. And we won't be seeing you for Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy until 2022. But until 2022, let's have Hani Barcelos shave some ass on Saturday night, finish the year strong. Let's stack cashed tickets like flapjacks, you guys. Let's have a great 2022. I wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, a happy and healthy New Year, and we will see you guys in 2022. I will be back tomorrow on Chronic Combat Conversations. I will be making my debut on their show. I think it might be 9:30 Eastern time. I have to check my phone. It's on my calendar. But check me out on Chronic Combat Conversations tomorrow. And I will be coming to you guys with one Balls Deep breakdown as well tomorrow. If you have any particular fights you want me to do a Balls Deep breakdown on, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at MMA Weezy. All the stats that you saw in today's video are available for download in the description of this video for free. You can check out Stat Digger's link in there. You can check out the DraftKings DFS show I did in there on Pub Sports Radio. You can check the main event deep dive I did with my guy DFS by the numbers in there. And you can check me out on the Die Hard MMA podcast that I did with my guy Clint. I've been busy this week, but I do it for you guys. Thank each and every one of you for hanging out. And let's end the broadcast here. Let's finish 2021 strong and make it an even better 2022. Thank you guys for watching. See you soon.